Far out in the universe, there was a galaxy full of strange and wonderful planets. Some were home to giant, peaceful creatures. Others had cities that floated in the clouds, and some had forests where the trees could talk. But no matter where you looked, one thing was the same. Every star map, every galaxy map, every explorer's guide, all showed the same thing. The map stopped at Earth. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't like the stars just faded away. No, the map ended right at the edge of the solar system, with Earth and its moon sitting at the end like a mystery. The aliens had no idea why. Across the galaxy, dozens of alien species had tried to answer the big question. Why does the galaxy map stop at humanity's doorstep? They had sent their best explorers, their fastest ships, and their smartest scientists. But every time, no one could go any further than Earth's orbit. It was like there was an invisible wall. Some aliens, like the Tylorians, believed it was because humans had some kind of cosmic protection. They thought humans were the chosen species for a reason they couldn't understand. Others, like the Zaxians, believed the Earth was cursed, that anyone who tried to pass it would disappear, never to return. But one thing was certain, no alien, not even the bravest, could get past the Earth barrier. The story begins with a curious young girl named Lila, who lived on Earth. Lila was fascinated by space. She often stayed up late at night, staring at the stars through her telescope, wondering what lay beyond. She had heard the stories of alien ships that had disappeared when they got close to Earth, and she didn't believe in the curse or the chosen one theory. Lila believed there was an answer, and she was going to find it. One evening, as she was watching the stars, something strange happened. Her telescope picked up a strange flicker in the sky. It wasn't a shooting star or a satellite. It was a ship, a real alien ship. Lila quickly grabbed her communicator, a tiny device she always kept with her. She knew this was big, huge. If she could prove that an alien ship had just arrived at Earth, maybe she could prove that the mysterious barrier could be broken. "Lila, what's going on?" her friend Max called over the speaker. Max was a big fan of space, just like her, but he was always a little more cautious. "Is that really a ship?" Lila nodded, her eyes wide. "It's definitely not from Earth. I'm going to try to talk to them. This could be our chance to find out what's really going on." She pressed a button on the communicator, sending out a signal to the alien ship. For a few long seconds, nothing happened. Then, to her surprise, a voice came through the speaker, not in words, but in images, bright, colorful patterns that made her dizzy for a moment. But then the images formed into shapes. A face. It wasn't like any face Lila had ever seen. It was tall, with 4 eyes, skin like shimmering silver scales, and hair that floated like liquid. The face smiled, and though Lila couldn't understand the strange sounds coming from the ship, she knew this was an invitation. Max stared at the screen, wide-eyed. "Are you going to go out there?" he asked. Lila didn't need to think twice. "I have to." She grabbed her backpack and ran out of her house, Max right behind her. Together they ran toward the spot where the alien ship had appeared, a quiet field on the outskirts of town, where the trees were thick and the stars shone bright above. When they arrived, they found the ship hovering gently above the ground. The air was charged with an odd energy, and the ship's glowing lights blinked softly, as if waiting. The strange alien face appeared again in the air before them. This time it made an odd gesture with its hands, almost like it was asking them to follow. Without saying a word, Lila stepped forward. She felt an excitement she had never felt before. Could this be the answer to the cosmic enigma? Was the mystery of why the galaxy map stopped at Earth about to be solved? "Let's go," Lila said to Max, her voice full of determination. Together they stepped into the ship, and the door closed behind them with a soft hum. Inside, the ship was even stranger than they could have imagined. The walls were made of something that seemed like liquid light, constantly shifting and flowing. There were no seats, no buttons, just strange symbols that glowed on the walls. The air smelled like fresh rain, and the floor beneath their feet felt soft, like walking on clouds. The alien, who Lila now recognized as a creature from a species known as the Yellorians, seemed pleased to see them. It made another gesture, and the ship began to rise. "We're going to the edge," Lila whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the moment. She was about to travel farther than any human had ever gone before. But as the ship shot through space, Lila couldn't help but notice something strange. The stars were dimming. One by one, the stars began to fade, leaving only the dark, endless void. No matter where the ship went, the stars seemed to disappear in front of them. It was as if they were being swallowed by something deep, dark, and mysterious. And then they reached it. A wall, not made of metal or rock, but something else, something that felt like it was made of pure nothingness. It stretched out in every direction, blocking their way forward. There was no sound, no light, nothing at all. Lila stared at it, her heart racing. "This is it," she whispered. "This is why the map ends." But the Ylorian creature didn't seem afraid. Instead, it touched the strange wall with its glowing hand. The ship began to shake gently, and then something began to happen. The wall rippled, just like water. And through the ripples, a shape began to form. It was a doorway to something beyond. Max grabbed Lila's arm. "Do you think we should go through?" he asked, his voice trembling with excitement. Lila's heart pounded. They were so close. She felt the pull, the temptation to find out what lay beyond the edge of the universe. But was this the right choice? Before she could answer, the alien spoke in a language that felt like a soft whisper inside her mind. "Are you ready to face the truth?" it asked. Lila hesitated, looking at Max. Then, without another word, she nodded. The doorway was waiting. The alien's voice echoed in Lila's mind again, as if the very question was wrapping around her thoughts, urging her to make the decision. "The truth," it said softly, "is more than you can imagine." Lila's pulse quickened. She glanced at Max, who was standing beside her, eyes wide with both fear and wonder. "What do you think, Max? Should we go through?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Max looked at the shimmering doorway, then back at Lila. He swallowed hard. "I don't know, but I think we have to. This is bigger than anything we could have imagined." Lila took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing thoughts. The rippling wall that had formed the doorway was inviting, but there was something eerie about it, like it was waiting for them, pulling them into the unknown. Without another word, she stepped forward, her foot crossing into the doorway. Max followed closely behind her. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the world around them seemed to shift. The ship began to hum, and the rippling doorway disappeared, leaving behind only the vast emptiness of space. It was as if the entire universe had folded in on itself, and they were standing on the edge of something new. Lila's eyes widened. The stars were gone. Not a single twinkle remained in the sky. The entire galaxy seemed to have vanished. In front of them stood an enormous shimmering structure, something so vast that it stretched beyond their ability to comprehend. It was like a bridge made of glowing light, twisting and winding across an endless expanse of nothingness. The Yellorian stepped forward, its 4 eyes watching them intently. Its hand stretched out and pointed to the glowing bridge. "The way forward is not easy," it said in the same gentle, mind-spoken voice. "This is the path to understanding." Lila looked at the structure, feeling an overwhelming sense of awe. But with that awe came doubt. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "This is where all paths lead," the Elorian answered. "The center of the universe, the point where creation itself begins." Max blinked in confusion. "Creation? But we've always believed the universe was infinite, that it just goes on forever." The Elorian tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question. "That is what you have been told, but it is not the truth. There is an end, and there is a beginning. This is where both converge." Lila's mind raced. She couldn't fully grasp what the Elorian was saying, but it felt important beyond anything she'd ever imagined. The Elorian stepped forward again and raised its hand. The glowing bridge began to pulse, sending waves of light across the darkness. "Step forward, walk the path, and you will see what lies beyond." For a moment, Lila hesitated, but then she took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's do this," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of determination and curiosity. Max followed her, though he looked uncertain. "Are we really ready for this?" he whispered. Lila didn't answer immediately. Instead, she started walking, her feet light on the glowing bridge. The Elorian glided ahead of them, its silver skin shimmering in the light that surrounded them. The bridge seemed endless. With every step, the light around them grew brighter, almost blinding, and yet Lila felt no fear. Instead, she felt like she was meant to be here, like this was where her journey had always been leading. As they walked, the bridge began to take on new forms. At first, it was just a solid beam of light, but soon, strange patterns began to appear on the surface, like the fabric of reality itself was being woven in front of them. Lila's eyes grew wide as the patterns shifted and changed. Stars, planets, and galaxies all formed and reformed with every step. Then suddenly, the Elorian stopped and turned to face them. It raised its hand again, and the bridge split in two, revealing a massive, swirling portal ahead. It was like a swirling vortex of light and shadow, twisting and turning in on itself. "This is where your journey truly begins," the Elorian said, its voice calm and unwavering. Lila stepped forward, but something stopped her. A strange feeling washed over her. The portal, it looked so different from anything she had ever seen, like it was a window to an entirely new universe. "What's on the other side?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and caution. The Elorian's 4 eyes gleamed with ancient knowledge. "Beyond this portal lies the truth of your existence, the answer to why the galaxy map ends at your doorstep, the answer to why you, humans, have been kept at the edge of the universe for so long." Max looked at Lila, his face pale. "Are we really ready to hear the truth?" Lila took a deep breath. She felt the weight of the moment, the enormity of what they were about to discover. But there was no turning back now. They had come this far, and they couldn't let fear stop them now. "I'm ready," Lila said quietly. Max nodded, though he still looked unsure. "Okay, let's do it." The Elorian stepped back, giving them room to approach the portal. With a final glance at each other, Lila and Max took their first steps into the swirling vortex. As they crossed the threshold, the world around them twisted and blurred. For a moment, it felt like they were falling through a tunnel of stars, light, and shadows. Then everything stopped. They were standing in a completely different place, a place that felt both familiar and alien at the same time. Before them stood a massive structure, not unlike the glowing bridge they had walked on earlier, but this one was far grander, more intricate. It hummed with power, its surface constantly shifting and changing like a living being. At the center of the structure, there was a glowing sphere, pulsating with energy. Lila took a step forward, drawn to it. She could feel its power, its weight in the air. It was as if this sphere held the answer to everything, the answer to the mystery of the galaxy, the barrier that had kept humans isolated for so long. Then, from the shadows, a voice spoke, a voice that sent chills down her spine. "You've come to learn the truth, human," the voice said, "but are you ready to accept it?" Narpadavada. The voice echoed through the air, resonating deep inside Lila's chest. She glanced around, trying to pinpoint where it had come from, but the source remained hidden in the shifting shadows. The structure around them seemed to pulse with a life of its own, like the entire place was aware of their presence. "I'm ready," Lila said, her voice steady despite the unease swirling inside her. Max, standing just behind her, glanced nervously at the glowing sphere. "Lila, what if this is too much? What if—" But Lila didn't let him finish. She took another step forward, her eyes locked on the sphere. It was as if she knew this was the moment that would change everything. Suddenly, the shadows around them shifted, and out from the dim light emerged 3 new figures. The first figure was tall, with skin like polished obsidian. Its eyes glowed a soft blue, and its long robes shimmered like liquid metal. It moved with a kind of quiet grace, and as it stepped forward, it spoke with a voice that was both soft and commanding. "You seek answers, human," it said, "but answers come at a cost." Lila blinked, staring at the being before her. It wasn't anything like the Ilorian. It was different, colder, more distant. But there was something about it that was mesmerizing. Max took a step back, his fear growing. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaky. The being looked down at him with its glowing eyes. "I am Jaris, one of the keepers of the truth. It is I who protect the knowledge you seek." It glanced at Lila, then back at the sphere. "But not all who seek the truth are prepared to accept it." Before Lila could respond, a second figure stepped forward. This one was smaller, with a hunched back and long, flowing hair that seemed to shimmer with golden light. The being wore a cloak woven from what looked like threads of stars, and it had 2 small, delicate wings folded behind its back. The figure's voice was gentle, almost musical. "I am Aria, the Seeker," the being said, its voice like a soft song. "I have traveled through the realms of existence, seeking understanding, and I have seen things no mortal has ever dreamed. But I must warn you, young one, knowledge is not always a gift. Sometimes it is a burden." Lila's heart raced. The more she heard from these beings, the more she realized how small and insignificant humanity seemed in comparison. And yet, something deep inside her still whispered that this was where they were meant to be, on the edge of the universe, standing before the truth of everything. But before she could speak, a third figure stepped into view, and this one made her stop in her tracks. It was Korath, a towering figure with skin like molten lava, crackling with energy. His eyes burned bright like the core of a star, and his movements were powerful, almost violent. His very presence seemed to command the air to crackle and bend. "I am Korath the Harbinger," the figure growled, its voice deep and rumbling like thunder. "I bring the end of things, the breaking of worlds, and I will tell you this, human, some truths are better left unknown." The air seemed to grow thicker as Korath's words hung heavy in the space between them. Lila felt a chill run down her spine as she looked at the being. Korath was not like the others. He felt dangerous, as if the very idea of him was a warning, a force of destruction. The Ilorian, still hovering silently nearby, raised a hand. "Do not be afraid of Korath's words. He is the balance, the one who ensures that knowledge does not consume us all." Jaris, the dark being, spoke again. "The truth you seek is not simply information. It is power. Power to change the course of your history. Power to reshape the very fabric of reality. Aurea fluttered her wings slightly, her voice soft but full of sorrow. But power comes with consequences. The universe is not a toy, and even the smallest change can cause ripples beyond imagining. Lila felt the weight of their words. Each of the beings before her was powerful in their own way. Jaris, the keeper of the truth; Aurea, the seeker of wisdom; Korath, the harbinger of endings. They were all guardians of knowledge, guardians of a force far beyond her understanding. And yet it was clear that they had each made their own sacrifices. "I understand," Lila said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "But I need to know. I need to understand why the galaxy map ends at Earth, why humans are different." Aurea's wings fluttered again, and she stepped forward, her gaze softening. "Very well. You seek answers, and we will give them to you. But first, you must walk the path of truth. To understand the answer, you must face your own heart. Are you ready for that?" Lila took a deep breath. "I am." Jaris stepped forward, raising one hand to the glowing sphere at the center of the structure. "Then, let the truth be revealed." As Jaris' hand made contact with the sphere, a wave of energy shot out, surrounding them all. Lila's mind seemed to expand as visions flooded her thoughts. She saw flashes of images, a world where the stars were born, a civilization that mastered time, a creature that lived within the fabric of the universe itself. Each image flashed by faster than she could process, but each one held a strange, undeniable significance. Then the images stopped, and in the silence that followed, a single truth remained, a truth that shook Lila to her core. She saw Earth, but not as it was now. It was alive, not just with people, but with something ancient, something cosmic. Humanity, it seemed, was more than just a species. They were guardians, not of the stars, but of the balance that kept the universe from falling into chaos. The barrier that had kept them isolated was no accident. It was a safeguard, a protection against the forces that sought to destroy the delicate balance of existence. And it was humans who were the key to keeping that balance. Before Lila could fully comprehend what she had just seen, Korath spoke, his voice low and menacing. "This is the truth. But know this, every choice has its price. You now hold the power to change everything, and once the truth is known, there is no going back." Max stood next to Lila, looking pale and overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. "What do we do now?" he whispered. Jaris, Aurea, and Korath all turned their gazes on the two humans, their eyes filled with an ancient knowing. "It's your choice now," Aurea said softly. "But understand this. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed." Lila took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing thoughts. This was what they had come for. The truth was before her, and the universe would never be the same again. She knew what she had to do. "We have to protect the balance," she said firmly. But even as she spoke, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Something was coming, and they weren't the only ones who had been listening. The ground beneath them trembled harder, a deep rumbling vibration that shook the very air. Lila felt it in her bones. Something was approaching, a force far greater than anything she had anticipated. The glowing sphere at the center of the structure pulsed with brighter, more frantic energy, and the shadows around them began to stretch, shifting and warping like they were alive. Max grabbed her arm, his eyes wide with panic. "Lila, what's happening? What's coming?" Before Lila could respond, a new figure appeared from the swirling shadows, its form shifting like a living cloud of dark smoke. It seemed to flicker in and out of focus, its body an impossible mix of shifting shapes. Its eyes glowed a fierce red, and its voice came as a cold whisper, like the wind through a forgotten graveyard. "I am Vraxar," the figure hissed, its voice like nails on glass. "The harbinger of the void. I have heard the truth you now hold, and it will be mine." The very air seemed to grow colder as Vraxar emerged fully from the shadows. Its presence was suffocating, and every step it took caused the ground to crack and warp. Its form was neither fully solid nor fully liquid, as if it existed in a realm outside the normal dimensions. Korath, the towering molten being, growled, his voice thunderous. "Vraxar, you have no right to be here. This is not your domain." Vraxar's glowing red eyes fixed on Korath, and for a moment a terrifying silence hung in the air. Then, with a mocking smile, Vraxar spoke again. "The truth is mine to take, Korath. Everything you've built, everything you protect, will be undone. Humanity has the key to what I've been seeking for eons." Lila took a step back, feeling the weight of the situation. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. The truth she had uncovered, the power humanity possessed to maintain the balance of the universe, had attracted the attention of something far more dangerous than she could have ever prepared for. But even as fear began to swell inside her, Aurea fluttered her wings, stepping in front of Lila protectively. "You will not have it, Vraxar," she said firmly, her voice like a melody, but filled with undeniable strength. "You cannot control the balance. It is not meant to be harnessed for destruction." Vraxar's laugh echoed through the vast space. "Control? Oh, I do not wish to control. I wish to end. Everything. The balance is a fragile lie, and the universe, this so-called truth, will crumble under its weight." The ground beneath them shook again, and the air was charged with the tension of a brewing storm. Lila's mind raced. She looked at the sphere. The truth she had seen, the revelation that humanity was meant to protect the universe's balance, was not just a piece of knowledge. It was a weapon that could either save or destroy everything. But how could humans possibly protect such power? They had only just learned of it, and now, standing face to face with beings who had existed for eons, Lila felt small and powerless. That was when a new voice cut through the tension. "I think it's time we had a new player in the game." Lila spun around, her heart racing, to see a figure materializing from the farthest corner of the room. It wasn't like the others. This one was human. The newcomer was a young man, maybe a few years older than Lila, dressed in a long black coat that shimmered like it was made of starlight. His hair was dark and wild, and his eyes gleamed with a confident, almost cocky energy. He held a device in his hand that looked like a cross between a communicator and a weapon, a strange, glowing contraption that buzzed with power. "I was wondering when you'd show up," the man said with a smirk, looking directly at Lila. "You're the one with the truth, right? Well, it's lucky for you that I'm here. I'm not much for the whole balance of the universe thing, but I do like to see things stay interesting." Max blinked. Who are you?" The man grinned, stepping forward. "Name's Axel, but you can call me the guy who's going to keep everyone from tearing each other apart." Lila frowned. She had no idea who this guy was, but his sudden appearance only added to the confusion. "You're human," she said, her voice uncertain. "What are you doing here?" Axel's grin didn't fade. "Well, believe it or not, I've been watching, and I've seen what's coming. This whole universe-ending truth thing, I think it could use a little more perspective, don't you?" Vraxar, clearly growing impatient with the interruption, snarled. "You are not welcome here, human. You are insignificant. Leave now, before I make you." Axel didn't flinch. He adjusted the device in his hand and pointed it toward Vraxar. "I don't think so. I've got my own plans, big guy." The device in Axel's hand began to hum with energy. It glowed brighter and brighter until it shot out a beam of pure, concentrated light, striking Vraxar square in the chest. Vraxar screeched in fury, stumbling back as the beam of light hit him. The creature's form flickered like a broken signal, its smoke-like body scattering and reassembling itself as it howled in rage. "You dare?" Axel took a step forward, unbothered by Vraxar's wrath. "Oh, I dare. And if you think you can just waltz in here and take over, you've got another thing coming." Lila stood frozen, trying to process everything happening at once. Axel's sudden arrival was as unexpected as Vraxar's threat, but she could feel the energy in the air shifting. Axel, for all his cocky attitude, had just stood up to something that could destroy them all. "You," Lila began, finding her voice. "You know what's going on?" Axel winked at her. "Let's just say I know more than a few things about this whole universe business. And don't worry," he added, noticing her skeptical look. "I'm not here to cause problems, just to make sure we don't get crushed under the weight of all the cosmic drama." Max stepped closer to Lila. "So, what now? We just trust him?" Axel chuckled. "Trust? Not necessary. But you should listen, because right now there's a war brewing, and if we don't act fast, none of us are going to make it out of here." The tension in the air was palpable, and the threat of Vraxar still loomed like a dark cloud. But now, with Axel's unexpected arrival, things were far from simple. Allies and enemies seemed to blur together in a web of power, truth, and destruction. Lila looked around at the beings who stood before her. Korath, Aurea, Jairus, Vraxar, and now Axel. The answers she had sought were clearer than ever, but they came with complications she hadn't expected. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Lila knew. This was just the beginning. The universe was about to change. But would it be for the better or the worse? As Vraxar's growls echoed in the vast chamber, Lila realized one thing. They would all need to work together if they had any chance of surviving what was coming. The tension in the air grew thicker, and the rumbling beneath their feet intensified. Lila's heart raced, and she could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. Vraxar, still reeling from Axel's blast, slowly began to reform, his form flickering like a malfunctioning hologram. "We don't have much time," Axel said, glancing over at Lila and Max. "Vraxar's not the only problem. There are others who are sensing the power here, the truth, the balance. If we don't act fast, we'll all be torn apart." Lila nodded, her mind racing. Everything was happening so quickly, too quickly. But now, more than ever, she felt a sense of urgency. The truth they had discovered, the key to saving the universe, was at risk of falling into the wrong hands. Vraxar wasn't the only one who wanted it. And now, with Axel's appearance, the stakes had been raised. Korath, still standing strong, stepped forward. His molten body glowed even brighter in the growing chaos. "Axel is right," Korath said, his deep voice booming. "We must act together. The balance must be protected." But Vraxar wasn't about to let them regroup. His voice, distorted and filled with fury, erupted from his fractured form. "You think you can stop me? You think you can stand in my way?" With a violent flash, Vraxar's body solidified once again, and the air around them seemed to crackle with dark energy. The creature's form stretched and twisted, becoming even larger than before, its red eyes blazing with madness. Axel raised the device again, his finger hovering over a glowing button. "You don't know when to quit, do you?" he muttered, then shouted, "I didn't want to use this, but you're leaving me no choice." The device in his hand began to hum, and the beam of light surged once more, striking Vraxar with an intensity that sent shockwaves through the chamber. The explosion of light was so bright that Lila had to shield her eyes. For a moment the room was filled with nothing but a blinding white light, and when it cleared, Vraxar was no longer there. The creature had vanished, dissolved into the very space it had once occupied. Lila stood in stunned silence, her heart still pounding from the confrontation. It was over. For now. Axel lowered the device, breathing heavily. That should hold him off for a while, but trust me, he's not the only one who'll come for the truth. More will follow. Aurea, her wings fluttering softly, moved to Lila's side. The battle is won, but the war is far from over, she said quietly. This power you now hold, humanity holds, will be sought after by forces greater than you can imagine. Jairus, who had been silently observing the entire exchange, spoke next, its voice cold and calculating. You must protect the balance at all costs. The truth you now know cannot fall into the wrong hands. The universe will unravel if it does. Max glanced at Lila, his expression both concerned and determined. So, what now? How do we protect this power? How do we keep it from destroying everything? Axel looked at him, a sly smile tugging at the corner of his lips. That's the tricky part, my friend. We need to keep moving, stay ahead of those who seek the truth, and we need to be careful who we trust. Lila looked around at the beings who stood before her, Korath, Aurea, Jairus, and Axel. They were all guardians in their own way, protectors of knowledge, truth, and the balance of the universe. But even with their power, she knew the danger wasn't over, not by a long shot. The universe is vast, Lila said softly, her voice filled with the weight of their responsibility. And we're just getting started. Korath nodded solemnly. Yes, the truth has been revealed, but it is not yet understood. The choices you make from this point forward will shape the future of everything. Lila took a deep breath, looking at her friends and the strange allies she had gained along the way. There was still so much to learn, so many questions unanswered. But one thing was clear, their journey had only just begun. They were the keepers now, the protectors of the universe's balance, and they would fight together to ensure that the truth didn't tear the cosmos apart. As they stood in the heart of the cosmic structure, surrounded by the echoes of ancient knowledge and the vastness of the universe, Lila felt something new stir inside her. Purpose. She wasn't just a part of Earth anymore. She was part of something much bigger, a protector, a guardian of the truth that held the universe together. And though the road ahead would be filled with danger, uncertainty, and powerful enemies, Lila knew one thing for sure. They would face it all together. With that, they turned to leave the chamber, the glow of the sphere behind them dimming as the door to the unknown swung wide open. Their adventure was far from over. But they would meet whatever came next with courage, determination, and the knowledge that humanity was more important to the universe than they had ever known.